Hello everyone. So if you don't know who I am Becky Chilcox and I volunteer here as the events curator for this fantastic place that is the St. Brian Foundation. So welcome to you all this evening. It's really lovely to see lots of new faces, lots of familiar faces, and we hope that you will have a fantastic time this evening. We'd also like to say a huge hello to our online audience. We've got people joining us from Northern Ireland, Nottinghamshire, Surrey, lots of fantastic places. And I love that that is the best thing that has come out of the pandemic, is being able to broaden our events like this. So a huge welcome to our online audience as well. If you aren't aware, we host talks like this to help fund the upkeep of our fantastic Grade 2 listed buildings and our management and conservation of our unique and irreplaceable library collections and running of our print workshop and library programme. So in this way, just by buying a ticket, you're helping keeping this place going. So we really do appreciate it. Plus, we're all going to hear a fantastic talk from this fantastic lady sat here as well. So, I'm not going to talk about too much about the fantastic other talks we have on offer. There are just some fantastic things we have coming up. We've got a talk by a fantastic lettering artist and designer, Jessica Hish. We've got Peter Saville Part 2, who spoke last week. He spoke so long and so brilliantly. He's coming back to give his grand time and has to say. We've got our Wings booth, and if you don't know what that is, it's basically a big gathering of printers. Oh, okay, I'm going to use this. Yeah, we've got it. So Ways Goose, if you've not heard of it before, it's a big celebration of printing and printmakers, and we have a big, lots of people selling their wares, showing off things. There's cake, there's tea. It's a really fantastic day. So do look up on our website to find out more about it. I think you'll all absolutely love it. And we've also got a fantastic online talk in May about incorporating accessibility into design, which I think will be really enlightening and a fantastic evening talk. So do try and come along to that one as well if you can. So is the sound all good now, Peter? I just want to do a quick check. Yeah, we're good. Okay, so... Oh, is that better? Can you all hear me okay? Yep, good stuff. Okay, thank you. It's always good to get these things sorted. What else? So we've got brilliant talks. If you also didn't know, this fantastic building holds a brilliant library known as the St. Bride Library, and it holds printing and ephemera and design-related materials dating back from ancient Egyptian up to today, and you can book in our reading room to come and see some of these treasures. You can book a tour, you can go down to the theatre downstairs and see a show. We've got letterpress workshops, wood engraving workshops. There's just so much more here on offer, so do check out what we do. And you can find out more on our website, which is here. And also, this week, we are taking part in the Big Give Arts for Impact campaign. So the Big Give's newest campaign aims to support arts and culture charities working to achieve societal impact across the UK. And through this campaign, we'll be raising money for our unique library collections learning programme and building. Donations given between the 19th and 26th of March will be matched. So basically, if you donate £25, it becomes £50. So it's a complete win-win for everyone, I feel like. It's a really good thing. So if you are able to support us in this way, we would really appreciate it. But we know not everyone can, so that is completely fine as well. So, over to the really exciting bit. I am hugely delighted to be introducing tonight's speaker, Clara Vulliamy, and also I'd love to welcome all her friends and some of her colleagues as well this evening here today. Clara was born in London in 1962 and studied fine art at Chelsea School of Art, the Ruskin in Oxford and the Royal Academy, and initially pursued a career as a portrait painter and illustrator for newspapers and magazines. Clara began to concentrate on writing and illustrating children's books when she had children of her own. And she has published numerous titles, including Dotty Detective, Marshmallow Pie, and The Dog Squad. And in 2014, she collaborated with her mum to create the young fiction series Dixie O'Day, which is a huge personal favourite of mine. And I'm sure most of you know this already, but if you didn't, Clara's mum, of course, is illustration legend and royalty and wearer of fabulous hats, Shirley Hughes, who we are here to celebrate today.
Throughout her career, Shirley created an incredible legacy and gift to the world through her illustrations, stories, and acute observations of familiar everyday life. I know so many childhoods, including my own, have been enriched by accompanying Lucy and Tom on their adventures, searching the beach for bunting, and cheering when Dave and Dogger Wen were reunited. So we're really, really pleased to be here today with Clara and with you all to celebrate this fantastic woman. So I'm now going to hand over to Clara. Thank you.
That was lovely. Thank you. That was really nice. Thank you very much. Can I put that one? I don't need that one, do I? No. Thank you very much. Well, welcome to this very special celebration of the artwork of Shirley Hughes. And thank you so much for joining us, and thank you for inviting me. As well as some much loved favourites, tonight we're going to go behind the scenes to look at some of the unseen work. Much of which we found after she died in an old chest under a table long since forgotten. And when we saw what was in there, we just couldn't believe our eyes. So we're going to be sharing some of these gems with you tonight. And these photographs that you're looking at now are of her desk, just as she left it, as if she'd just slipped away for a minute. Lots of little notes too she'd left, like this one of Dave and Bella's present list for Dogger's Christmas. So sometimes I'll be talking, but sometimes we'll just be quiet and all look together, if that's okay with you. We're going to start with some photos from Mum's early life. A little bit of background. Mum was the youngest of 3 girls, born in 1927 to Kathleen and Tom. T.J. Hughes, her dad, I think he was a really important influence on her, even though she never got the chance to actually know him. He was very driven and he was very determined. And from a modest start in life in Wales, he came to Liverpool and he set up a successful department store. Mum had a theory that authors often write for readers who are the age at which something huge and traumatic happened to them. And I'm not sure this theory stands up to much scrutiny, really, but I think it's an interesting idea. Anyway, when Mum was 5, her dad died in tragic circumstances. So the 3 girls were brought up by a widowed mum who was, I think, sad, and quite maybe socially isolated in a massive house in a stultifyingly claustrophobic suburb. They did nice things. They went on summer holidays to the seaside. They went to Ramsgate. They also went to North Wales in a taxi, which was a converted hearse. But they didn't stay at the seaside. They stayed in the railway hotel next to Prestatyn Station because Kathleen had heard it was respectable. Oh, by the way, and a life drawing that you can see on some of these photographs, that refers to her autobiography. And I love the labels and the captions in her photograph albums. And I think she made a story out of her own life, which was probably a very healthy coping strategy. Anyway, so how did these 3 girls respond? Well, they threw themselves into a fantasy life, putting on plays, drawing pictures, and making up stories. Now I'm going to show you Mum's first book. It's The Reckless 3, written when she was 8.5. And what a cover. And Peggy, Ruth, and Mary were, in fact, the 3 sisters' alter egos. I'm just going to read you a little bit of this story. The tomboy of old. Martha Heidelberg was a tomboy. She lived in an old mansion in 1329. Her mother was kind and understanding. and let Martha run wild in the woods when she should have been sitting sewing or reading in the house. She ran wild. She doesn't look very wild, but I think perhaps the rabbit represents wildness. There were exciting stories, and there were pictures, lots of cake. Jane cut a nice big slice. There were puzzles. This one, what is wrong with these pictures? I've been trying to do this puzzle. You can have a go too. I could see that the chair's legs are missing because they haven't been completely rubbed out. So I could see what was wrong with the chair. That bottom one, it looks like cutting an apple with a pair of scissors. I think that's wrong. I couldn't see anything wrong with the jug. The clock, the numbers are going around the wrong way. But those shoes. Now, I looked at those shoes, and the buckles are on the inside because they have been put on the wrong feet. And this is the forerunner to Alfie's feet. I'm sure of it, when Alfie puts his boots on the wrong feet. And there were hilarious jokes, which I will spare you, and adverts, and spelling mistakes. And a great editor's chat. Dear girls, we're going to form a club. We're going to have many jolly companions. We're going to run wild. I think we can see what's going on here. It is pure escapism. At 16, she went to Liverpool Art School to study fashion. And about this, she said, with fashion drawing, you were not supposed to make the faces too interesting, but to direct attention to the clothes. But I got more interested in the faces. And I can see this. You know, the clothes are beautiful and they're stylish, but I do find myself looking at the faces and thinking, yeah, but who are you? You know, what's your backstory? However, she loved clothes. She made her own clothes, and she was masterful all through her life at drawing how clothes sit on the body. Some of these look derivative of fashion drawings of the period, you know, the kind you get on packets of paper patterns, but you can really see in some of these her style developing. You know, she's finding her voice. And she was only 16, and it's phenomenal. That pink and yellow, that style, that colour scheme, we're going to see that, lots more of that. And she carried on drawing fashion drawings when she went to Oxford, and secretly, because it wasn't thought to be like top-tier art, but she sold a few to the local department store for their catalogue. These next four have only just come to light at Liverpool John Moores University, and they were really thrilled to find them. And you can just see the dates on some of them, 1946, 1945. I can see the influence of the movies too in these. This lithographic-like tone and these smudgy effects, we'll be seeing this later on, so make a kind of like make a note of that, fix it in your mind. And this also, the bold palette and the heavy check, it crops up again later. So just kind of bear that in mind. She then went to the Ruskin School of Art in Oxford, which she chose because she'd heard that there was an ice rink in Oxford. There wasn't an ice rink, but she'd got away and she was never going back. And this year group photograph from 1948, I love her annotated photographs, and I'm not sure that the labels are always 100% reliable. Top right corner, Miss Wigglesworth. Oh, really? But a big shout out to Jack Townend, lithography tutor, who encouraged me to be an illustrator. Hooray. This next section, we're going to look at her student work, but it's also going to be going into early portfolio illustration, which she did when she had just graduated and was trying to get work. And she experimented with lots of different styles. I can see the influence of Edward Ardizoni in this, I think. Picasso, maybe. But mostly I wouldn't even recognize them as hers yet. Ronald Searle, definitely. And she was in the print room doing lithography. It's nice for me because I was in the Ruskin print room too, a generation later, grinding down the lithography stones. That's a nice for me to think of it. She did illustrations for student magazines and got in with the drama set. A lot of period scenes and historical fiction. Wistful women and dashing men. It's almost as if it was like a world seen through the lens of other books, rather than observed or really lived real life. A side note, there was still clothes rationing after the war, but the new look had arrived in Paris, and Mum made herself a full skirt out of some green baize that she'd got off a billiard table. She said it attracted a lot of pencil sharpenings in the life room. The Forsyte Saga, and we were thinking that Mum has drawn Victorian houses seen through railings from London gardens all her life. She tried her hand at book jackets, which would come in really useful later. It's that pink and yellow again. Rogue Mail. Worth noting, she was hand-rendering all of these different typefaces. There was no computer for Mum, not even when they did exist. Not much in the way of children's books yet. The children, if they featured at all, they were beautifully drawn, but idealised. I'm not sure if you even knew any children. But see how she's leaving space for the text as the consideration of the page already. But with these evacuees, you can see the children are really starting to warm up in time. I think that's the railway children, you think? Christmas card designs. Sometimes she drew on detail paper, which is like thick tracing paper, very smooth, with a Gillot 290 lithographic nib. dipped into Indian ink, which sounded to me, when I was growing up, like some kind of like magical object, which in her hand, I suppose it was. Love that house, opened up like a doll's house. Cutaway heaven. And these were reversed out in preparation for printing. Spot colour, well, colour was an expensive luxury and you'd be, lucky to get one, let alone two. When she graduated, she came to London and she took her folder around publishers to try and get work. It took ages to get going. She didn't know anyone and she was lonely, and her one treat was to save up for tea once a week on her own at Lyons Corner House in Marble Arch. But she persisted. "Telephone Miss Shirley Hughes at once," says Mr. Windus. If I didn't know better, I'd think Chatto and Windus she'd made that up too. I don't think she did. But then a breakthrough. A letter arrived from Collins Publishers. And just look at the telephone number, Regent 5977. "Dear Miss Hughes, thank you for letting me see further specimens of illustrations for A Pony to School. We do not think you are quite yet at home with ponies, although I know you have tried very hard and taken a lot of trouble. If you feel you would like to have one more shot at pleasing us," very high-handed, "at pleasing us, there is a new manuscript by Olivia Fitzroy, which has just come in, and it is a West of Scotland story with no ponies." So her first commission in 1950 was a cover illustration for the Hill War. No ponies. And it was followed over the next 10 years by many, many other book covers and interior black and white line illustration. She was on her way at last. I love the palette of this period and the limited colour. That pink and yellow really sings out. Oh, Valerie Hughes was her sister, Vally, who also died young. I didn't know she'd written a book till I saw that. But the way the blue washes over the sky and the sea and the skin tones, and it looks oddly modern to me, actually. So Nina Borden, Noel Stretfield, she was starting to illustrate for bigger names now. Inside the actual copy of this book out fell some original illustrations. Awfully disappointing. She's so disappointed. She's awfully disappointed. So some more interior illustrations here. They are idyllic and very charming. Oh, an amazing piece of original artwork here. That yellow is so vivid. And she did so many. I thought you'd like to see the way she did the colour separations by hand. So she would start with a cover rough, and then swatches for the colours that she wanted, a finished drawing in black and white, that's like line and brush, I think, in Indian ink. And then she would do the first layer of colour separation in a solid ink, and then the second layer, and then the finished cover. Here's another. This is The Shinty Boys, great title. A colour rough, the first layer and the second layer. We'll do one more. So this is Skates. So this is the colour rough and the orange swatch just pinned onto the top. And the drawing, a beautiful finished drawing in black and white. The blue layer and the orange layer. They're lovely, aren't they? This next one, Something to Do. Does anybody remember this book? Yes, great. I loved this book. Look at this child thinking about doing some things. His face, it's so good. I loved it. I pored over the pages. I don't remember doing any of the things, but I loved it. I loved reading it. Mum didn't do the diagrams, which was just as well. Somebody else did those, technically accurate. You might know who this is. A very early illustration for My Naughty Little Sister. And together with the author, Dorothy Edwards, they put naughty girls on the map. And that was a game changer. She did anthologies, massive amounts of work, huge range of things to draw. And she had 3 youngish children by then and minimal help. She must have been using every minute available to her. No messing about. You sit down at your drawing board and you crack on. She was very prolific, very driven, and very hardworking, and, you know, loving it. She illustrated Little Women twice. And you can really see the development of her style. So this is the first edition, which was in 1960. With this beautiful spot colour and this lovely lilac. And the second, it wasn't much later, it was 1968, but her style had really developed. And when I look at this drawing, I think I can see more confidence. She's kind of relaxing into it, just even in that short space of time. She illustrated the Railway Children twice too. And again, you can really see the development from this earlier illustration in the earlier edition, and then this second edition. And this, I think, is her more recognizable style. She illustrated The Secret Garden. She illustrated Millie, Molly, Mandy. Basically, she drew everything. So all this time, an idea for a children's book was brewing. And this section will be a spotlight on the journey from the first experimental ideas to what would become her first picture book in 1960, Lucy and Tom's Day, and into an outstanding series that spanned her whole career. And these first ideas, I don't recognise that style at all, but do you remember that lithographic, that smudgy effect we were talking about? And this heavy, quite gloomy colour, actually, and the heavy check. She tried it out in black and white, too. She wanted a clock with moving hands that followed their day, but she was told it was too expensive. But when she got going on the rough sketches, Tom in particular is bursting with vitality. There's a lot going on with these two boys. You're either on the trike or you're not on the trike. That's life. She had 2 small sons at this point, by the way, just saying. And so their mother lies on the sofa after lunch and reads a book or writes letters, like you do. And their dad comes in after work and reads them a story. She's reading Happy Days. It's very conventional family life, of course, but it's starting to feel real. The school playground. And this, finally, was the world that she saw around her, and the diversity of the city. And that might not seem much now, but it was highly unusual back then. I love the all-over colour wash. It's so lovely. She was experimenting with different ways to pick these scenes. It's Lucy in her rather more domestic play. And lunchtime for everybody. And she's always trying out different versions, different ways of doing it. We uncovered so many slightly different versions of the same scene. And when she finally settled on who they really were, Lucy and Tom, they are warm and rounded out and just right. These are from the dummy book with drawings glued down with the dreaded, what was it called? Cow gum, yes, cow gum, which had discoloured badly. But oh, how we loved it. We used to go into her workroom and stick our fingers into this kind of lovely rubbery goo. Cow gum. It's reassuring, it's uneventful, and very comforting. And finally, that scene. I do love that scene. It reminds me of my dad. In the finished book, she used a big range of styles. So some of it was just black and white. Some was black and white with a simple kind of textured coloured effect with it, and some was full colour. And this was Notting Hill of our early childhood, and it's very nostalgic for us. And the end papers with their cosy landing light, particularly wonderful. And over the series, working on texts. And working on roughs. And the finished books had the most sparkling detail for the young reader to pore over. And the most luminous cityscapes and big skies. I remember this, choosing our favourite house to live in. So good. cosy domestic scenes, little jokes. Good old Dad pretending to be surprised at an empty boiled egg shell. If Mum's characters ever went anywhere, it was usually just a day trip to the seaside, and they were always home by bedtime. But these vast skies, as far as the eye can see, and figures in their own little dramas to spot in the artwork. And finally, just some roughs from Lucy and Tom's Christmas. The lightest, loosest, most fluid pencil lines. I can't believe that that scene on the right was nearly squashed onto just one page. More on that later. Toy shop windows at dusk, Portobello Road to choose the Christmas tree. Perfect. So now we're going to look at the transition from roughs to finished artwork and examples from two lesser known books. First is Sally's Secret, published in 1973. So this is the finished cover art, but we're going to have a look at the journey of how she reached that point. Well, for a start, Sally was Ida originally. And she was making her dummy books into real books, sometimes hand-sewn, and they were really worked on. And talking about materials, she actually used an actual candle to kind of resist, as a resist for the paint. Amazing, lush, and beautiful colours. Ice gems. A friend of mine told me that in her family they call ice gems Sally's Secrets. She really liked. And the text was typed out, probably by our dad, and stuck down. And here we are with some of the finished art. Which has lost none of the vitality or the fruity, fabulous lusciousness of the colour. It's lovely. The second example of roughs to finished art is The Trouble with Jack, which was her second picture book in 1970. Here's the finished cover artwork, and that incredible yellow. And we'll look at the roughs. Well, the original title was Bad Jack, but I suppose it was toned down a bit, I guess. It was a bit strong. And in it, there is a girl called Nancy, whose whole character is that she is a good girl and that she loves her dolls and loves brushing their hair. That's kind of pretty much it for Nancy. But they have a Christmas party. Look at that orange and that blue. It's incredible. I think the children look strange and a bit wild and weird in this picture, but I like the shorts and tie combination for a party outfit. Mum knew she was onto something good when she decided that this little boy would take the frilly wrapper from the Christmas cake and put it around his head. And she knew it was good, and she drew it again and again and again. These incredible pinks and oranges. This says, oh, well, I am sure you can imagine. This was the era of the narrator would say things like, well, you will not believe what happened next. I know children, you would never do anything as naughty as this. And I think children quite like to be shocked and appalled by naughty children in books. Well, you remember Nancy brushing her doll's hair? Well, you will be shocked. You will be shocked when you see what happens next. So, of course, and So I can tell that she really enjoyed drawing this too, because she drew this again and again. Look at him. He looks like a bit of a psycho, actually. So, playgrounds, parks, and children in the city. Well, these were her star moves. This is the Rec, Avondale Recreational Park, where we went when we were little. Rough and tumble boys playing football in QPR shirts. Children on the roundabout and the seesaw. I remember that perilous swinging climbing frame, and I remember the fierce toilet attendant. Backs of terraced houses, pigeon fancying, washing day, watering the plants. And here is Holland Park. And she took her sketchbook to these places and she drew on the spot, building up a huge bank of images to draw upon, literally, as at her drawing board. The corner shop. And the school fair in Dogger. I really like, there's a boy trying on a blazer with plenty of room to grow in. You see him down at the bottom. I'd never seen it before, I'd never spotted it before. This is from Moving Molly. This is Notting Hill in the 1970s. This is playing out on the street. And look at the life in those children as they move and play. And the technique here is very characteristic. It's painted, but it's also, I don't know how to describe it, drawn with the paint. And see too the figure of Molly on the far left, you know, her pose, leaning back on the pillar. She's diffident, standing back, observing, set slightly apart. So much happens in the space between people in Mum's illustrations. It is beautifully observed. Dogger, perhaps her most famous and loved book. It was the winner of the Greenaway of Greenaways in 2007, which is the premier book illustration award. And he is so famous that he has his own fans and his own paparazzi. This is on Mum's front doorstep where she sat out and we had drinks and chats in lockdown. But mostly he lived in a hat box in her workroom. The original Dogger, the label says, very precious. And inside, instructions to wrap him in a special silk scarf. Here he is with Mum. But he belonged to my brother Ed and has now, all these years later, returned to him. It's so interesting to see the original manuscript and the writing in progress as it actually happened. And the sun was shining on Mum when she came up with these opening lines. Once there was a soft brown toy called Dogger. One of his ears pointed upwards and the other flopped over. His fur was worn in places because he was quite old. He belonged to Dave. And why are roughs so magical? To me, it's like pulling up a chair and watching over somebody's shoulder as the ideas form in a thought bubble over their head and kind of tumble from their hand onto the page. And to see the ideas develop and change. Dave, distraught, or bordering on hysterics in that scene. I love it. The drama of the search for Dogger. Dad looking in the bushes. Bella rummaging in the toy box. All the family pitching in. And Dave wretchedly missing Dogger, discarding the wrong teddy. And then Bella did a very kind thing. And who can say those words without a bit of a lump in their throat? Lovely rough. And perfect painting. The world just gave this book their whole heart. Alfie, another blockbuster. But did you know that Alfie was at first a girl? So in this teeny tiny book called Boots, here is Daisy. And it's exactly the same story as Alfie's feet. She stamps in the puddles. She gets wet feet. And has new boots. Stamp, stamp, stamp. But when he showed her who he was, like all good authors and all good people, she listened. So in 1981, Alfie came to life on the drawing board and burst in on the scene. And sometimes I'm not sure whether he has a very strong, distinct character, because Alfie is universal. He is everyman. And these stories are about, among a lot of other things, they are about the sagas and the triumphs of being a small child. And here is Alfie putting his boots on the wrong feet. Remember? The shoes on the wrong feet in the Reckless 3 when Mum was 8.5. Never throw a good idea away. Have I even mentioned how good she was at drawing animals and birds? I should have. If Alfie doesn't have, I don't know, maybe a very distinct character, the same could not be said for Alfie's best friend Bernard, seen here at his birthday party, blowing jelly through a straw. By contrast, Alfie, who is kind and thoughtful. And Mum always said Bernard would get the girl. A fantastic cast list of friends. And of course, Annie Rose, bright as a button and a force of nature. And here is the quintessential Alfie and Annie Rose. I think probably what people love best about them is the reassuringly chaotic, imperfect ordinariness of domestic life. Bonting. Only Mum could make such a gripping, heart-in-mouth tale and character out of just a pebble. Lost and found. And he even has his own bathing costume. Well, this is a rare opportunity to see these private sketchbooks, so it might take a little bit longer on each picture to look quietly together. Mum was a devoted, prolific sketchbook user, especially on her holidays. She took copious notes, and this was something that she did with our dad, John. They did together. Familiar places the family visited often. This is West Witterings on the south coast. A cottage in Sussex. That's Dad. That's me with our cats. But most of all, in Italy. Some great nuns. That picture. This is the Hotel Belvedere, 11 a.m. on the hotel terrace. And she painted on the spot, and she started the painting with Prussian blue and Van Dyke brown, and then building it up with like oil pastels and gouache. The same spot at 2 p.m. I hope after a nice lunch. Rome, I think, and those very distinctive tall cypress trees and the ochres and the golds of the buildings and the tiny brushwork of the aerials on the roofs. On the Amalfi Coast, so glamorous. Who doesn't wish they were there right now? And these scenes found their way into her book Enchantment in the Garden, which do seek it out. It's glorious. Rooftops, allotments, little paths, greens. The light and the baking heat in the distance and the cool shadows in the foreground and that washing line just strung across the page. It's just masterful. Flowers in pots, dozing cats and dogs. She was at her very happiest, sitting in the sunshine with a glass of wine and her sketchbook, doing what she loved best. And this is where I imagine she is now. There is so much we haven't covered from her 75-year career and her vast body of work. Particularly of the nursery collection, which has not yet been photographed for our archives, but it will be. Brilliant rhyming books for little tots, which every small child needs in their life, like they need, I don't know, vitamin C. The Fab Four, we call these. Her bigger, richly illustrated books for older children, and we're on the wilder shores here now of magic, fables, war, fairy tales. The Ella's Big Chance, that was also a Greenaway winner. Enchantment in the Garden, I mentioned with the Italian sketchbooks. And as if all that wasn't enough, 2 novels for young people, including the award-winning Hero on a Bicycle, that she wrote because when she was recently widowed, she wanted something extra to do at the weekends. These are some of the birthday and Valentine's cards that she made for John and for us. It's a birthday card for me. It's her special word picture style that she loved and did often. I'll show you how it works. So, dear Clara, I, rope, R crossed out, hope, you, hat, T crossed out, have a berry, B crossed out, very happy birthday. Well, you get the idea. I'm going to leave it on the screen just for a moment so you can have a go. I loved my cats very much. This, when I was 11, the little cat poking round the door, and then when you opened the door, that was my cat with her kittens. Racing into the teens with my cool brown flares, my violin. I love this style. It makes me think of Klimt, the tall, gold, lovely frame and those colours. That's beautiful. And these were for Dad. They were loving, they were funny, they were glamorous, I think I can see the film references. I think they were harking back to some of the golden age of the movies they both loved. Again, this lovely shape. Beautiful. And one of the last ones. So precious. We probably took them for granted, but weren't we lucky? We're going to finish on just one last look at one last piece of original artwork. I think it is her genius in one picture. Christmas can be quite tiring. Tom gets very excited about his presents and rather cross. So he and Grandpa go for a walk together in the snow, just the two of them. The sun is very big and red. And how wonderfully she understood small children. And who on seeing a setting sun, it gives me a lump in my throat, who on seeing a setting sun or a winter sky, especially in the city, doesn't think, oh, that's a Shirley Hughes sky. But this isn't the end, and it isn't goodbye, far from it. There are new books coming out to give to a new generation of readers and share the Shirley Hughes world, and there are more in the pipeline. We have just launched the Shirley Hughes Sketchbook Award with Orange Beak Studio, and it is to celebrate and encourage observational drawing. And you can find out more, so check it out. And my brothers, Ed, Tom and I, Ed and Tom are just there in the back. You put your hand up, that's Ed and that's Tom, yay! So, Ed and Tom and I, together with our friends and family, we are Shirley Hughes and Friends. And we've got a lot of exciting plans and projects ahead, especially as we approach the 100th anniversary of Mum's birth in 2027. And you can contact us here. So please join us. And I think that's it. So we will maybe see if there are. So, oh God, let's put Mum up there. Oh, thank you. Thank you very much. Thank you. Thank you.
I'd like to say that so that, oh sorry, the Zoom people can't hear me. I'm just going to put this one back up.
Sorry, a bit of a microphone switcheroo while we deal with things. So Claire will be up there in a second. Thank you so much, Clara. That was a hugely just wonderful talk. I feel like I could listen to you for hours. I felt like I was transported back to being 3 to 5 to 7 to age 20, rereading the books in my childhood bedroom, and just thank you so much. Everyone online is absolutely loving this as well. And there's so many references of the lines from the Christmas book being repeated every Christmas and things like that. So thank you so much. Firstly, I'd just love to know a bit about yourself, actually. So you're an illustrator as well, and a very lovely, good one with some fantastic books. Sorry, that was a really bad use of words. You can tell I'm a designer, not an editor.
No,
the sentiment was there. Fantastic was there.
So
how, like growing up in, you know, with your mum creating so much fantastic things, did you always think that's what I want to do when I grow up? Or how did you get into what you do now?
I suppose in a way because she didn't encourage me to do it or suggest that I did, I think probably it was because I just saw how much she loved it. And I think that's a really lovely thing to show young people. You don't have to tell them it's great. You just have to be seen loving what you do, I think. So I just noticed how much she loved it. And I think the apple probably didn't fall very far from the tree.
Absolutely. So did you just sort of start doing your own? Do you work in a similar way in terms of sketchbooking? How are you? Or you're your own person, obviously, but
No, I've picked up quite a few habits from
Yeah.
Mum. But I suppose in a way, you know, I think she's so driven and she was so prolific. So I think you'd have to turn down both those dials with me, and that's fine.
Excellent.
But the loving it dial is set to maximum for us both, I think.
Thank you. We had one question online, so I will come to the in-person audience in a moment, but I'll just have a look at the online questions first. There is just so much love in the room for you and in the virtual room as well. Let me just go back to the first question. This is from Francis. They've said it's such a lovely and moving insight. Thank you. Did your mum ever have a preferred daily routine?
She had to fit in around, well, when she had children, she had to fit in around that. She didn't have much help. I think, our dad certainly, as soon as he got in from work, it was like the Lucy and Tom dad. When he got in from work or at weekends, he stepped up. But she didn't have, much in the way of childcare. So I think she got in the habit of getting into her workroom and just doing as much as she could in the time that she had. So that was when we were young, and when we were older, I think she went slowly into the day. I think her best bit was from mid-morning to mid-afternoon, and she worked hard, and then she just stopped and then did something else. And sometimes she would write in the evening, so she'd paint in the day, write in the evening.
Brilliant, thank you. We've got a question from Luke. Did you or your brothers ever see yourselves reflected in the books? The drawings of you as a teen seem to suggest a similarity to Mrs. McNally's daughter Maureen. Great insight.
That's a great insight. I'd be so flattered to be Maureen. I mean, she's such a good role model. I think, well, Mum denied that any of us were in it at any time. And I think that wears a bit thin. I think I can see us all. I think I can see us in the round faces and the curly hair. I think it's probably one of those things that she just absorbed what she saw around her, and then filed it away, and it came out in an imagined way. So I think, well, she says we're not in the books, so we're not in the books.
Good to know. I just want to let our online audience know that we will pass all your comments on that are absolutely wonderful to Clara later, so I'm taking screenshots of them. So I'm just going to move to the room. Does anyone have a question? Yes.
I think you've already answered it, actually. I was going to ask you where Lucy and Tom lived, because it looks so much like the South London suburb, Norwood, where my sister's children were children at exactly the right time. They were born in the 70s. My own are slightly younger, but Lucy and Tom are like my nieces and nephew in the places they're playing, the houses they live in, the back gardens, grandpa taking the little one for a walk.
Yeah.
It's very London, isn't it?
It's very London.
Couldn't be anywhere else.
There are so many bits of London, but equally people see it and say, oh, that's just like, where I live in Cardiff. I mean, people see they see familiarity because it is so universal. But that little bit of Notting Hill and Portobello Road, it's that our world was quite small, and we were really in that very small little bit of London, and so she was drawing on that closely. But it's funny, isn't it? You just see what you...
It is lovely that so relatively early her pictures of children on the playground are so multi-ethnic, so again very Londony, which is like that in Norwood as well, but would not be like that in Cardiff.
I think it's a real joy. And a lot of people have said, that was the first time they opened a book and saw themselves in it. Yes. And this was now, we take it for granted, it's just assumed, but back in the 60s and the 70s, and it was just white kids playing, and people would. You need to see yourself and be seen in the books you read.
You touch on this too. Many picture books of like the sort of Ladybird series, which is a bit earlier, but everything was all neat and perfect, wasn't it? Every little girl had a bow in her hair. These children look like real children.
They look like, and the chaos, the domestic chaos, and a lot of other people have said that they found that reassuring to look at. Yeah.
I know I feel like we could all do this. I just feel like everyone is beaming the biggest smile after just in the love in the room for these books and these wonderful illustrations. A wonderful person, and you as well. Oh, fabulous. I forgot I had a question myself, actually. We can see that your mum developed from no ponies to donkeys beautifully.
Yes.
Did she ever do anything with ponies? Ever?
No,
Did she avoid them like the plague from that first
They are
projection?
really. I avoid ponies.
They are hard, yeah.
They're really hard and a bit weird. They are weird to draw. I don't know. No, I don't think she ever. I think she did avoid ponies, but you were right. Was a lovely donkey.
Good donkey.
At lunchtime, I had not spotted that. Well
Excellent.
spotted.
Maybe the pony book thing was less of a thing by then.
Any
Pony
else
books
in the
was the
room?
whole thing, wasn't it? Yeah. No.
Sorry. Yes, over here.
One thing that I've always wondered is were you a family that loved cats? Because growing up, we always had a cat and we loved cats. But so many of the other books that I read when I was a child had dogs. But there's Mopsa and there's Chessie and there's the cats in Molly's neighbour's garden and Sally's cats that come for tea. So were you mad cat people?
That is absolutely spot on. Well spotted. We were always a cat family and we always had a cat or more than one cat. And in fact, when I was young, really small, I found a stray kitten under a bush in the rain. And I said to my mum, can I keep this kitten? And she said yes. And to me, that is like straight out of a children's book. It doesn't seem real. I'm saying it, and I just think that just doesn't sound real, but that is actually what happened. Found a kitten, can I keep it? Yes. So I was living a Shirley Hughes story. So yes, we did always have cats.
Any other questions? I'll come over here and then to the back.
Can I ask whether, did she have a favourite character or series of characters to draw? And did she have like a favourite medium to work in, like painting or drawing or sketchbooking?
Her paint was, I think it was watercolour very early on, but then she moved into gouache, which she stuck with for decades. So gouache was her paint. She liked the body of it. She liked the fact that, and I didn't know how to describe it, and I still don't, but the fact that you can paint in it and draw in it. So, her drawing was with a brush in paint, and also she would go over mistakes. So watercolour, you have to start again really. With gouache, she actually just, she just painted out in white and carried on. So that's why you get a real lovely richness to the colour. And so, and her sketchbooks, that I think the technique is beautiful in that. The fact that you can see the fact that she drew in the Prussian blue and Van Dyke brown, and you can see it in the paintings. You can see the line, and then you can see the colour kind of built on top of it. She drew, and I think she, and the pen and ink, I think she went more over to just pen as she got older. Favourite characters, I think it was always the one that was on her drawing board at the time. That's like your best work is the one in front of you, or even the next one. So I think she, with her characters, it's probably like, which one of your children is your favourite? She probably was for them all, I think. Really nice question. Thank you.
Thank you. I'll just come to the back.
Thank you. So this was something, I'm just disputing something that you were saying earlier about whether you appeared in any of the books at all. Because my mother, who sadly had to leave because she has to be up very early tomorrow morning, as soon as your brother walked in, she said, that man looks just like Alfie. I bet that's Alfie.
That's great.
And so my question is, why did Alfie start off as Daisy and become Alfie? Was there a reason why he had to change into a boy?
I would love to know the answer to that, and I can't, because we only found that little book after she'd died. And when I found it, I was riveted by this. And it's just something that's just, the explanation has gone with her. I would love to know. But it was really the same. And I didn't show it all, but the little sibling as well, the relationship between the older child and the toddler sibling, it was really interesting to see it. I don't know. And as for the family resemblance, yeah, I've got to toe the family line that we're not in the books, but we're so clearly in the books. So I don't know. There we all are, going past over and over again. And that drawing of the child when Tom is on the trike and the other child it's just, it's so well observed. It feels like family.
Any more questions in the room? Anyone? I'll just move to the front and fill the space with an awkward waffle. I'll just check anyone else online has any questions. Thank you for bearing with us while we switch between the two. Oh, it looks like there might be more questions. Oh, okay. Oh, let's see. Okay, sorry, I'm just trying to read which one. Do you have any intention to translate the stories into animation going forwards as a team? Wouldn't that be fabulous?
That would be fabulous. We're definitely open to suggestions.
Netflix, are you listening? Channel 4? Who knows? Yeah, I think that's everything from the online questions as well. Just some lovely comments. I'm just going to check. Anyone else in the room have any more questions? Oh, we have one more. I always like to check.
Sounds a bit silly, but what's something you wish more people knew about your mum, or something that would surprise us to end on? Thank you.
Oh, that's a question. Fantastic question. I really hope I can do that justice. She wasn't the cosy old duck that everyone might think of. She was critical, she was quite scathing, she was very observant about other people. We found some fantastic sketchbooks that she did of her neighbours. And I thought, and a lot of her neighbours, they were like, the area changed over time. Notting Hill changed a lot. And some of the later, she was drawing, basically Tories and bankers and, old Etonians and labelling and putting little speech balloons in them. And they didn't know. And they were scathing. So I think it's a really nice question. I think I'd like people to know that she had edge, and she was a powerful and interesting and very bright person. Yeah.
What a perfect note to end on. And I think the best question we've had in this room for quite a while. It was fantastic. I feel like we need an absolutely huge, another round of applause for Clara.
Well, thank you very much. Thank you. Thank you very much. Thank you.
I have a couple of other thank yous, sitting behind the scenes, doing a lot of work. Thank you to Mark. He's been absolute star.
Can't manage without Mark. Can't manage without Mark.
Thank you all for coming. Thank you for joining us online. Thank you so much for Peter doing the tech behind the scenes, making it all work. Thanks to everyone at St. Bride's who've been always fantastic working behind the scenes. If anyone would like to carry on the conversation, we're going to be going to the Crown and Sugarloaf, which is out of the main doors. go right down the little stone staircases. You'll be on the lane. You sort of go sort of leftish. You'll see a gin shop and then a lovely little pub on the corner on the right. It will just be there. Hopefully that'll get you there. It's literally 2 minutes walk. So if you get lost, I'm really sorry. Thank you all very, very much. It's been an absolute pleasure, and we'll hope to see you again soon. Thank you.
Thank you.